Hey, this is Dino, and I want to walk you through an example API proxy in Apigee that you can use to decrypt an encrypted JWE. And then if the payload of that JWE is a signed JWT, you can then verify the signature on that JWT. At that point, the claims in the JWT, you can deem them to be trustworthy and you can act on them and trust their content to the extent that you trust the signer. Okay, so before we get into that, I want to show you some background information. The things that I'm talking about, JWE, JWT, um, are part of a family of IETF standards that go under the name of Jose or JSON object signing and encryption. There's a number of them. Some cover signature encryption, and then 7519 is JSON Web Token. JSON Web Token is probably the most popular, well-known of the standards. Really, it's just a way to wrap up a payload and some header metadata in some secure envelope, either signed or encrypted. The claims can be anything. Um, lots of different examples there. There are some well-known registered claims, but the claims can really have any name you want. Um, there are two different kinds of JWT. One is signed, and one is the other is encrypted. The ones that you're probably dealing with when you talk about JWT, most people are dealing with signed JWT. That's what you get out of an OpenID Connect authentication flow. Most systems are using signed JWT. In some cases, what we're seeing is that people are wrapping an encrypted envelope around a signed JWT, and that's covered kind of under JWE. So JWE follows the same form as an encrypted JWT, except in the JWE, the payload is not a specified data type. In an encrypted JWT, the payload is always JSON. In a JWE, the payload is anything, any byte stream. So in the common example, what we're seeing is the payload is actually in a JWE is often a signed JWT. So that's not JSON, it's just a byte stream, and that ends up getting signed. The benefit of that is you can have both the privacy or secrecy that is afforded by JWE because of the encryption. And then once that encryption is unwrapped, once you decrypt, the token in there can be verified, and you have the integrity guarantees. That is to say, the claims, you can be comfortable that those claims are true if you trust the signer. Okay, so that's kind of the background, JWE, JWT, signed JWT, and the JWE. Now I want to show you an example proxy that manages or can handle these signed JWT that are wrapped in a JWE. So I'll go to the Cloud Console. This is going to be on Apigee X. The example that I show will work on Apigee X. It'll work on hybrid too. I don't have a hybrid, so I won't show you that. I loaded this proxy in just a little bit ago. It's got this kind of long-winded name. And let me just show you the operations. So really there are two interesting flows. One is generate and one is verify. The one that I've been talking about is verify. Like decrypt the JWT and then verify the signature on the, decrypt the JWE, verify the signature on the JWT that was embedded within. Just really two steps. This is what it looks like to decrypt a JWE. To do this in Apigee, today you need to use a custom policy. That custom policy is available on the web. I'll put the link in the notes on the YouTube video. And you can configure it this way. So basically you say this, you have to stipulate the encryption algorithm that is used on the JWE, and you have to provide a decrypting key. You also supply where the inbound JWE is. In my case, I'm going to send it into this API proxy as a form parameter, and that's all I need. So that's just going to give me the clear text out of the ciphertext that is the JWE. So once I do that, then I can treat that cleartext, that decrypted thing, as a JWT, and then just verify the signature on the JWT as I would with any JWT. It's just a normal JWT. I built the proxy to, once it does that, it just sends back the payload in the signed JWT, the recovered payload, and we'll see that working in just a bit. So before we do that, let's start a debug session. Oh, I should say the other flow that's there in the API proxy is a flow to generate one of these things. In order to demonstrate the decryption and verification of the signature, have one of those things to decrypt. So there's another flow that actually builds one of those things. You're probably not going to include both of those things in a single API proxy, but I included it here just for the purposes of the demonstration. Okay, so I've started the debug session. Let's run the generate flow. So this is just invoking that API proxy. It's a loopback proxy. There's nothing upstream. It just connects into Apigee, runs some policies, and then sends something back. And this is the JWE. So I'm going to save that in shell variable before we get very far. But let's see if we can take a look at what that thing is by flipping over to a web tool and pasting it in. So what do we see? We see this web tool is handy enough that it'll kind of color highlight the different segments. And so you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 segments in the JWE. That is what we expect, just as I showed you in those slides a little bit earlier. And we're able to see the decoded header, which is not encrypted. That's important because the header will say, well, this is the algorithm that you're going to see on the key. This is the content encryption algorithm, and the content type is actually a JWT. So the thing that is being encrypted is a JWT. We cannot see the ciphertext. We cannot see that JWT that's embedded in this JWE because we don't have the private key, at least not here. But this does give you an illustration of what that JWE is. All right, so back to my terminal. We now have that JWE in the shell variable. And what I want to do is verify it. Okay, so I'm going to send in the JWE as a form parameter to be verified to the, and we'll invoke that other flow. So nothing really dramatic here. We send in that long JWE, and what we're getting out is a JSON payload, which happens to be the payload of that inner JWT. But let's have a look at the debug session in the tool in Apigee to see what happened there. So we can see there's a couple of different calls to generate and some to verify, but this is the most recent one to verify. So it's coming in, and it's the first step is to decrypt that JWE that's inbound, and that's using the custom policy that I described. This is the JWE that I sent in. That's the same thing that we showed in that web tool, and it just runs through that custom policy and decrypts it using the appropriate key. The outbound, the payload from that is shown here, and if you can see that, if you can kind of diagnose that, that is the shape of a JWT. So the JWE is encrypting a JWT. So if I copy that and drop that into to this box, what we're going to see is that's a JWT. 3 parts, signed JWT, 3 parts. There's the signing algorithm, and these are the claims in the decoded payload. So back to the trace. So that's the first step. We decrypted the inbound JWE, and then the next step is just to verify the signature on that JWT that I just showed you. So that's the JWT, and Apigee is going to go verify that signature and pull the right keys and figure out if it's expired or not. It looks like it's not. It's got 1,670 seconds remaining in its life, and so on. And then we just send back the payload from the verified JWT to the caller just as kind of proof that the signature verification worked. Okay, so that's it. That's a combination of two different steps, one to decrypt and one to verify the signature. And you may find that useful in some cases where you're wrapping a signed JWT in a JWE and you need Apigee to handle that kind of cryptography. I hope this has been helpful. Till next time, keep it digital.